So today I'm going to taste one of the most extraordinary wines that's made in Australia. It's a Seppeltsfield 100-year-old Para Tawny, what we used to call a port in the old days, but we can't call it that anymore. But this is a unique wine. I don't know anywhere else in the world where a barrel of wine is put aside for 100 years before it can be bottled. And Seppeltsfield has been doing that since 1878. So the 1878 was the first one. It was put aside by Benno Seppelt, who was, I think, the son of the founders, and he was running the show at Seppeltsfield at the time. He was a very entrepreneurial chap, and he did a lot of the building around the Seppeltsfield property, and he decided to put aside a barrel of port, as it was called then, every year and not allow anybody to touch it for 100 years, or at least not allow anybody to sell it for 100 years. I'm pretty sure they touched it because the winemakers tell me that some of the barrels of the very old ports have got quite a bit of ullage in them from sampling over the years. Important visitors would be shown through the barrel cellar and given a taste of this and a taste of that. But they do have a barrel of every wine that has been produced since 1878, and they don't bottle it and sell it until it's 100 years old. So this year, the 1925 is being offered for sale at the grand price, I think, of about $1,800 a bottle, Australian dollars. That's for a 100ml bottle, which is this little fellow here. It comes in this beautiful packaging. The bottle is inside a box, which is inside a box. So the bottle actually was in there. It's all beautifully designed and crafted. A wooden box inside this magnetised box. Lovely. And if you think the 100ml isn't a lot of wine, you've never tasted a 100-year-old Para, because the explosion of flavour of this wine is truly extraordinary. I'll have a little taste of it. The first thing, they recommend you use a Riedel cognac glass, which is this one here, but I'm not going to use that because I actually prefer to see it in a glass with a bigger bowl. And if you can see that, as I'm pouring it, the colour of that wine is truly amazing. When you swirl it, it coats the glass with an extraordinary amount of yellow tawny brown colour. An extraordinary colour. And if you leave that glass like that, it will stay for minutes and minutes and minutes. That's how intense the colour is. So it's been sitting in a barrel for 100 years. The concentration happens by evaporation. Not every barrel evaporates at the same rate, but there's quite a lot of volume lost during 100 years. I think in the first 50 years they do top the barrels, but for the second 50 years they don't top them, and they allow the natural ullage to happen as the evaporation happens. This amazing wine is made from Grenache and Shiraz, probably all grown on the Seppeltsfield property in the Barossa. This is truly astonishing wine. Just to look at it is amazing, but to smell it and taste it, there's nothing like it in the world of wine that I'm aware of. And the closest thing that I can say to that is very, very old Italian balsamic vinegar. So Aceto Balsamico of Modena has, when it's very old, it's something similar to this. It's sweet, it's viscous, it's incredibly concentrated and powerful and very, very beautiful. What does it smell like? Well, that's really hard to describe because it is so complex, but there's a lot of dried fruit characters in there, figs, dates, raisins, that sort of thing. You could probably see old leather characters there, old wood panelling in an old building. You get that sort of an aroma as well. And I think of the smell of the leather of an old Chesterfield sofa or something like that. Fruit cake, pan forte, those sorts of things. Fruit cake with lots of dried fruit in it. And let's have a taste. I'm not going to spit that out. The explosion of flavour is just, it really has to be experienced to be understood. That flavour will linger in my mouth for minutes. So intense. It is very sweet, but the aftertaste is not syrupy. It is actually quite cleansing on the aftertaste because of the acidity, which would be quite high. The alcohol, which is very high, it's about 23% by volume alcohol. Well, it's hard to describe. The rancio effect is sort of a drying effect that you get from a long time of wood aging. It's a bouquet, it's a flavour, and it's a sensation as well on the palate. The aftertaste just goes on, and the balance of that wine, when you consider that it's just been sitting in a barrel for 100 years, Nothing much has been done to that wine. It's just put into a bottle. Don't think they even filter it. It'd be pretty hard to filter anyway. But that is a natural wine, unmanipulated. And yet the balance of it is exquisite. It's extraordinary. And of course, as the wine evaporates in the barrel, the alcohol level increases slightly, even though some of the alcohol is being evaporated. The concentration of alcohol does increase slightly. The acidity would increase, the volatile acidity would increase, and the sweetness would increase, to say nothing of the intensity of flavour. It's amazing that those components are in such good balance after 100 years. That is such a beautiful wine. I've only had one sip of that, but I don't really need any more. That wine just sticks in the mouth for so long. You can see how it sticks to the walls of the glass. Well, it does the same thing in your mouth. It stays there for a long, long time. That is an amazing wine. And hats off to Seppeltsfield. It's no longer owned by the Seppelt family, but for most of its life it was. Hats off to the custodians of this amazing treasure trove of old fortified wines at Seppeltsfield for continuing this wonderful tradition. And hats off to Benno Seppelt for having the idea in the first place. Cheers.